everyone. I'm sitting here with Mark Hubbard. Hi.
Hello.
At Croy, and in this interview, I would like to ask you, Mark, a little bit about the conference itself and how you see the perspective for additional or further cooperation across the pond between communities in Europe and also communities of people living with HIV in the US. So, first of all, how are you?
I'm great today. I'm having a good Croy. And I think Croy is a very important conference. So I don't have anything negative to say about that in terms of being an opportunity to get a lot of science in a very dense setting. So you can get a lot of information in a short period of time. And it's reasonably accessible for advocates, although I would like to see more advocates present at the meeting. And, that's a matter of funding and logistics, but I'm always for more.
We were just before this interview. We were just very briefly talking about. You mentioned ATAC. We were talking about community organizations to some extent. How do you see this evolving in the U.S. Versus Europe, or this relationship between our communities?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important for us to be linked more intimately in this work, and I think there are differences. So I think there's strengths that ATAC can bring to the table, or the U.S. can bring to the table, but I think the EATG and the European groups have very good strengths in terms of dealing with this. And one of those I would just call out is that in the U.S., our global effort has historically been focused on treatment. And we really do not have an effort in prevention that's analogous or equal to what EATG has. And with respect to the recent controversy around the Discover trial, I think that came out dramatically. And so what I saw was folks in the U.S. equally as motivated to do something, but sort of scrambling because of not having a well-established, pre-existing infrastructure to do that, where it looks like the EATG is going to be in a much better position, also just because the trial opened later there, and so they have more advance notice, but they seem to be in a much better position. And so I think we need to help each other. We need to learn from the example of each other and share our strengths.
If we concentrate now for the next question on this particular conference, what do you think are the highlights, or could be the most important points for our communities?
Well, that's a tough one because, every once in a while we are sort of at a lull or a plateau in terms of what you would call headline making information release at Croy. What I think is important is this is a great time to remind people that scientific progress happens in steps. And there's an immense amount of work being done. I think we're hearing really exciting things in terms of the roadmap to a cure, even though we don't believe that cure is imminent. I also am hearing some really interesting things in small studies in international settings that show us different ways we might approach getting to zero. And so those aren't always translatable, but what they do is generate a menu of ideas of how in a given setting you might really attack using all the tools at our disposal to reduce the incidence of HIV. So that's just a couple off the top of my head that I'm excited about hearing.
Now, these are, politically speaking, tumultuous times. In both regions, so in Europe and also in the States. Where do you see the points where we can work together the easiest, despite or the most straightforward manner, despite the fact that it has become politically so difficult for both of our communities, if you like?
Well, I think we have to learn from our past, and I think the bedrock of depoliticizing research is a public health approach. So we have to be savvy about emphasizing public health approach. We have to fight when people want to misinterpret the facts or bring religious beliefs or political beliefs to the table in something that really should be logical and science-based and fact-based and rational. And I think we both know how to do that, and it's all about solidarity. So I thought the statement made at the opening of this conference sort of expressed that in abbreviated form, that anything that prevents an international exchange of ideas and moving forward with a rational public health approach is going to reduce the health and cost of lives globally.
So you refer to Susan Bookbinder's speech at the opening yesterday, which was very political, and surprisingly so, because this is not what you get at a science conference. Do you, in your communities, support that political approach in science, and is this the way that we should go, or should we remain neutral?
I don't think we can ever be neutral. Okay. So, and what I would say is this conference actually has sort of a privilege to be able to do that, because it is not a benefit of primary funding from government institutions. And so, and actually the majority of its funding, or at least a very large portion, comes from registrations themselves. So the folks putting on this conference are the people presenting on this conference and have a good deal of ownership of the conference. But, you know, we have to be careful about our focus, and we have to pick and choose about what we say. But I think it was a wise choice of CROI to send a signal to the greater community globally, because they can. And I think it's okay to put that at the beginning of the conference to sort of frame the work that we do, because all of the work we do must be in line with that ethic. And it really was an ethical statement. Yes, it was political given the current environment, but we didn't generate those politics. We were responding in a public health and an ethical way to those politics. And if we just have to have solidarity on that.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
It was a great opportunity.